I will take 3 brave volunteers who want to share how they labeled their lives. 1, 2, 3. Go.
Good version of me, birth to 16. Better version of me, worst version of me, 16 to 24. Better version of me, 24 to 50. Best version of me now.
Okay. In the back.
I would say worst version of me, 15 to 25. This was rough. Good version of me, 20 to 29. Better version of me, 30 to 38. Best version of me is 38 to present.
The worst version of me, definitely 9 to 13. Good version of me, 14 to 21. Better version of me, 21 to 27. And then best, 28 to now.
Okay, great. This is my label. I'm going to talk a lot today about teenagers. That's what I know best. But the strategies and the concepts I'm talking about apply to any grade level that you're teaching. When you're thinking about teaching high school, one of the most important things to remember is that being a teenager sucks. We all know that. We've all been there and we've all lived through it. Even if we thought we had it together at the time, the chances are when we look back on it, we realize we didn't. Teenagers are self-centered, they are moody, and they're insecure. And if you want to read more about how much being a teenager sucks, I really recommend this book. It is advice from teenagers to their teachers, and teenagers say things like, I really want my teachers to understand where I'm coming from, in the same breath as, I hate when my teachers ask me about my life. It like perfectly encapsulates the frustrating contradictions in teenage minds. If you're going to teach in high school or middle school or elementary school, you do have to accept that being a teenager sucks sometimes, and if you can't accept that, you need to get a different job. If you expect teenagers to be something they're not, you're going to spend all of your time angry at them and frustrated at yourself. They're not kids who are going to love you unconditionally and hug you every day, and they're not adults who have the ability to put their academics before their social lives. We know this because we've been there, but it's easy to forget. It's especially easy at high school because sometimes our kids look and act a little bit like adults sometimes.
I'm sorry for this interruption, but would Nyla, Alina, and Destiny report to the main office, please, immediately?
And I'm gonna get there, we're fine. It's easy to forget that as well because they know how to push our buttons. Right? Suddenly you find yourself standing in front of the class and Maxwell and Jamal are singing inappropriate lyrics, even though you've asked them 5 times politely to stop singing and you've explained why they can't be singing during independent work and you've taken away their headphones. And so it can be hard to remember that. If you take nothing else away from this talk today, I want you to remember that sometimes kids are going to suck, and most of the time it has nothing to do with you. If you're sitting in this room today, it's most likely because you have signed up to love teenagers through their suckiness. And there is a lot to love. Teenagers are learning and growing, they're making decisions, they're making mistakes, they're deciding what they believe in, they are becoming funny on purpose, and they're like starting to find some teacher jokes funny. It's an amazing thing. They are becoming the people that they're going to be for the rest of their lives. And being that part of that process can be absolutely amazing. There are 3 mindsets that I think make it a little bit easier to love teenagers. Number 1, you have to be yourself. Teenagers specialize in detecting bullshit. If you put up a facade in front of teenagers, they will see right through it and they won't respect you. You have to be real, you have to be honest. They might not like it, but they will see it, they'll respect it, and they'll respect you for it. One day in office hours, Abdul and Alonzo were talking about their favorite songs. And when they asked me, of course it crossed my mind to name a Beyonce or a Drake song. And if Crazy in Love or Hotline Bling is your jam, then rock it. But neither of those songs compare to the best song ever written, which is Born to Run. And so I played it, and they laughed, obviously. Abdul's exact words were, Proft, no offense, but turn that shit off. And that's okay. The point is not whether they like Bruce Springsteen or not. The point is that they know I'm a real person who likes real things that are sometimes different from them. The point is that they know I don't lie to them. And it goes beyond music and clothes and sneakers. One day I was having a conversation with a student and he started talking about an act of violence that he had witnessed. And when he saw my expression, he stopped talking. And I had to check myself and say, I'm really sorry, that is my middle class white lady reaction to what you're talking about. Please keep going. And he did. And so it's super important to recognize that no matter what our backgrounds are, there are going to be things and there are going to be times where we don't understand or don't relate to our kids. And admitting that and naming that is important, not just for our students, but also for ourselves. Naming that is real and honest. Naming that will help make them trust you. You have to be yourself. You can't pretend to like things you don't like. It's not going to get you anywhere. You can't try to be a teacher you saw in the movies once. If you're honest with yourself and honest with your kids, the kids will feel safe with you. And when kids trust you, they will run to your classroom every chance they get. Often, like way more often than you want to see them. Right? The more they trust all of us, the more they're going to run to school. The second mindset is to be consistent. Teenagers thrive in structured environments. They're never going to admit it, but they psychologically behave better with rules because then that takes away the risk of them doing something wrong and being laughed at by their peer group. One of the best pieces of advice I ever got about teaching was when I started at NCA, and Nora Gillum told me, teenagers are like Roomba vacuum cleaners. And when you get a Roomba, it has to learn the layout of your room. And the way it does this is it does this perimeter lap and it like tilts itself ever so slightly against the wall. It goes about its business, it does all its vacuuming, but every once in a while it just checks to make sure the walls are still where they're supposed to be. And so it does a perimeter lap and it leans against the wall. As long as the walls are there, it goes right back to vacuuming. If the walls aren't there, it has to spend time recalibrating and learning the layout and learning where the new furniture is or if it's been picked up and moved to a different room. And teenagers do the same thing. They learn the rules, and then every once in a while, for no reason, on some random day, they just test to see if they're still there. Andy Cook wore a uniform every day, no questions asked for the first 3 months of school. And then one morning, he just woke up and said, I'm gonna wear my football sweatshirt today and see if anybody says anything. And if every teacher that sees him addresses him about that uniform, he learns that that rule is still there and he'll be back in uniform the next day. But if teachers don't address him about the uniform, then he learns that that expectation has changed. And now he spends a lot more time trying to figure out what other uniform expectations have changed. Same thing academically. Sienna Castro came to me at the end of the quarter with a 78 and said, my mom said I could get a new phone if I have all A's and B's on my report card. Can I make up that essay from 3 weeks ago? In her mind, all she actually cares about is a phone, but psychologically she's testing to see if that late work policy is still there. If I don't let her make up the essay, then she knows the policy is still there. She's real mad about that phone, but the expectations are the same as they've always been. If I do let her make it up, because I think I'm doing her a favor, or because I just want her to like me, or I want her to get that phone, it actually creates a lot more confusion for her going forward into the next quarter. It makes her wonder what other academic expectations have changed. It makes her wonder if she could now make up an essay from 8 weeks ago and get herself all the way up to an A. No kid runs to school to follow the rules, but kids do run to environments that they perceive to be safe and fair. And if the expectations and the rules are constantly changing, then kids feel targeted, they feel singled out, and then they spend a ton of their time trying to figure out what they can get away with instead of focusing on learning. Researchers in the book Schooling for Resilience found that the degree to which students were intellectually interested in school was determined by the degree to which they felt supported by teachers, perceived the quality of instruction to be challenging, and experienced the school environment as fair. Whatever the expectations are, whether it's school rules, grade level policies, or your own classroom system and routines, You have to apply the expectations consistently and fairly. And that way, when students push back, because they're gonna push that back, it's like in their DNA to always push back. It just helps to like, remember that Roomba. When I see Andy cook in his sweatshirt, I'm not gonna get angry at him. I'm just gonna think, you know what, he woke up just a little tilted today. And I'm not gonna engage in an argument with Sienna Casher about the phone, she's just tilting today. For the most part, as long as those expectations are the same as they've always been, the kids are gonna go about their business with very little complaint. The third mindset is to be intentional. Frequently at NCA, when we talk about building relationships, we talk about our merit and our loss of merit data. And the theory is that in functioning relationships, positive feedback outweighs negative feedback 3-to-1. And that in supportive and fulfilling relationships, positive feedback outweighs negative feedback 5-to-1. I'm not here to argue with the theory behind the golden rule or the golden ratio. But what I don't believe is I don't believe that the sum total of our relationships with students can be captured by merit data. I understand why we focus on it, because it is measurable. And what I'm about to talk about in Mindset 3 is not measurable at all. Building relationships happens in a nearly infinite number of ways. It happens when we give and take away merits, yes. But it also happens when you greet the kid in the morning, it happens in your tone of voice, it happens in the words you use, it happens in your facial expression, it happens when you give academic feedback, it happens when you address a kid or don't in the hallway. Building relationships happens all day, every day. And I started thinking about the number of interactions teachers have with their students. And I estimate that every teacher has at least 5 relationship building interactions every day with every student. Greeting them at the door, at least one facial expression, at least one piece of academic feedback, at least one merit or loss of merit, and then at least one interaction in the hallway. And I think this is a conservative estimate, but we're going with 5. 5 relationship building moments with every student every day. We've got 25 students in our classes, that's 125 relationship building moments in every class period. 5 classes per day is 525 relationship building moments every day. And that is a lot. That is overwhelming to think about. But I passionately believe that the key to making our kids run to school is to make as many of these interactions positive as we can. Every possible chance we get, we need to be telling our kids that we care about them, whatever that interaction is. I started thinking about this because of 2 of my favorite alum. Hear me out on this one, Kylie Taylor. Jelani Woods at NCA, she was a straight A student. She was engaged in her classes academically. She's a Chelsea Reeves, a Destiny Harris, a Kamori Terrell, a Collins Abanda. And my heart, Daquan Oxner, who was not at all academically engaged when he was here and was frequently suspended. He is an Amaya Bass, an Alameen Williams, a Delicia Ponce Oliver, an Andre Patterson. And I started thinking about those interactions, those same student-teacher interactions, but instead of thinking about how many interactions a teacher had every day, I started thinking about how many interactions a student had. And so each of them had 5 interactions with 8 of their teachers, that's 40 interactions. If we add 10 for hallway, admin, deans, random teachers, that's 50 interactions per day that each kid is having. And I've spent a lot of time this year thinking about the 50 interactions Jelani had and the 50 interactions Daquan had every day at NCA. Jelani's teachers most likely all greeted her enthusiastically. Daquan's teachers most likely greeted him with some form of, let's have a good day today. Jelani's teachers most likely smiled and hugged her. Daquan's teachers most likely took a deep breath and steeled themselves for battle. Jelani's assignments earned A's. Daquan squeaked by with D's, C's, maybe the occasional B. Jelani was frequently told, great job, as usual. Daquan was frequently told, try harder, come to office hours. Jelani racked up merits for participation, and Daquan racked up demerits for untucked shirts. It is safe to assume that on most days, all 50 of Jelani's interactions at school were positive. And the same cannot be said for Daquan, or for Amaya, or for Alameen, or for Delicia, or for Andre. And if the majority of a student's interactions at school are negative, why would they run to this building? The third and final way I thought about these interactions was over the course of a school year. And so if I had 5 interactions with each of them and there are 180 school days, then that means by the end of the year I've had 9,000, we'll call it or 900, we'll call it 1,000 to make the math easy, interactions per teacher. I would guess that with Jelani, like 980 of my interactions over the year were positive. I would further guess that with all 8 of her teachers, at least 90% of those interactions were positive across the course of the year. And that means that out of her 8,000 interactions all year, at least 7,200 of them were positive. And that means 7,200 times she was psychologically reassured that she was smart, that she was interesting, that she was a good kid, and that we had high expectations for her. And on the other hand, when I think about Daquan's 8,000 interactions over the course of the year, it's a real stretch to imagine that even 20% of them were positive. And so over and over, he was told that he was not meeting standards, that he was disliked, that he was a bad kid, and that we had low expectations for him. Which one of these students is eager to walk in the building every morning? And which one of these students now is excited to come back to NCA from college and tell all their old teachers about their amazing new classes? And which one of these students hates coming back to NCA because it feels like all of their old teachers are just pretending to be happy to see them? I want to be clear that Daquan did not make the same choices that Jelani made when they were here together at NCA. He was difficult, he was disruptive, he was not an angel. But his poor choices as a teenager, when it sucks to be a teenager, when we have agreed to love him through that suckiness, do not justify overwhelmingly negative interactions all day, every day. None of our kids' actions or choices justify that. We are never going to agree with many of the choices that the Daquans of our school make. And we are going to need to give them adjusting feedback. But it always needs to come out of a place of love. When we go back to the golden ratio, and we assume that students have 50 interactions every day, then 41 or 42 of them need to be positive, and 8 or 9 of them only can be negative if we want to build a supportive and functioning and fulfilling culture that we want for our kids. I wish I could give you a checklist on how to do this, and I wish I could give you sentence starters. I could tell you that Kylie Taylor's go-to uniform redirect is, oh, that's such a cute sweater. Yeah, it's not uniform though. And I can tell you that Lindsay Schaumbach has approached Andy Cook and said, hey, can I borrow that sweatshirt? I want to wear it for the rest of the day. And my favorite uniform redirection is, God, that blazer just brings out the color of your eyes. Why are you hiding that? But these approaches aren't going to work for every kid, and they aren't going to work for every teacher. And they might work for a kid with a teacher, but not with a different teacher. And if all 80 of us started complimenting students on their eye color, this place would get like really creepy really fast. So there's no like checklist or robotic way to do this. Building relationships is a soft skill, and it's not measurable. And that's why we focus on the merit and loss of merit data, because that is measurable. Some of the things I can tell you, and I know they're not sentence starters, and I know they're not a concrete like Lamave's taxonomy, but you need to be a human being. And you need to treat your kids like people, not just like students. You need to do everything possible to make sure they're succeeding in your class. That might mean extra time with kids that you don't really want to spend extra time with. You need to smile at them every day. It doesn't matter how they behaved in your class the day before. And if we do these things, the more we do these things, the more positive relationships we build, the better off our school is going to be. I've thrown a ton of numbers at you, and they all come back to 5. They come back to 5 relationship building moments every day with every student. Times 25 in a class, times 5 per day, that's 525 moments every day. And my charge to you is to think intentionally about those. The reality is that none of us are ever going to have 525 positive interactions in a day, right? We are not superhuman rays of sunshine, and children are going to make choices that require negative follow-up. That's okay. Give them that adjusting feedback. Give them that failing grade. When they get that failing grade, just make sure they know it is coming from that place of love. Make sure they know it's because you care about them and you ultimately want them to be successful. The more we can do this individually as human beings and together as a staff, the more our kids are going to run into school. And that's it. Woo!